Shwmai, croeso, hello and welcome to the 66th episode of the Bluebirds Nest. Following an excellent but very wet win at Britain Ferry this week in the JD Cymru Premier, attention now turns to the Welsh Cup. And as you can see, a very familiar face to lifelong Bluebirds fans. Joining us this week, former player and manager, the one and only Mr. Derek Brazil. Welcome to the Nest, Derek.
Good evening, Ryan. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Thank you for giving up your time for this chat. I think it's very timely that you join us this week. You're one of many current roles in life. The current role is Director of Football at Trethomas Bluebirds, who we obviously face in the Cup this weekend. You're high-flying in your debut season in the Cymru South. We'll get on to those Bluebirds later, perhaps. But first, I want to go down memory lane with you. I want to talk Man United and also the other Bluebirds played a big part in your life, Cardiff City. United first, though. I've done a lot of reading. I've thoroughly enjoyed looking into your career path. You started football at just 14 years old, I think, over in Rivermount Boys Club, I think I've read, obviously in your home city of Dublin. And then just a few years later, your talent was shining through. Scouts spotted you. I think a number of top clubs were after you, but it was the lure of Ron Atkinson and Man United that came calling, offering you a trial, against probably some of your own childhood heroes as well, I think, in the Man United first team. So let's go back to that time, invited over to Manchester to come for a trial. What was that like?
Well, it was, like you say, I started at 14. Before that, I played Gaelic football for 3 years. So my dad, who played football, and he'd gone to Blackburn for a trial for a month, was trying to convince me. So at the age of 14, I started as a striker, scored 29 goals and hated it. So, I'd kill for a goal now. Do you know what I mean? But so, I went to Rivermount Boys. They said, we'll play you centre-half. So I played under 15s for them. Got recognition for the under 15 schoolboys for Ireland. And then clubs started to watch me then. So I'd gone to Chelsea, Man City, Tottenham, and I was going to sign for Chelsea, but then I played for Ireland under 17s at Ellen Road, and Man United came in and said, "Look, we know you're going to sign for one of them teams. Come to us for a trial game." So I did. So myself, my mum and dad went over there, and I played in a friendly for Ireland at the time. Actually, they arranged for the Ireland under 17s to play Man United Select at the Clift. So, that just going there was, I was a massive Man United fan, and I was like an Arsenal fan around the age of 14, 15. So going there, and lo and behold, and, we played in the game at the Cliff. I think we lost something like 3-0. But Frank Stapleton was playing up front. Frank, I had pictures of Frank all over my wall because he was at Arsenal at the time, when I was younger. So he scored a hat-trick against me, and I'm thinking, well, United are not going to sign me. I still got Tottenham, Man City or Chelsea to fall back on. And lo and behold, Ron Atkinson called myself and my dad upstairs and said he wanted to sign me on a 3.5-year contract, which, at the time, even my dad said to me, he said, but Frank Stapleton just scored 3 against my boy. And he went, yeah, but he could have scored 10. We like the fact he didn't give up, and he said, put some tackles in. He so we're impressed. So that's kind of how that happened. And and still in my mind then, I was favouring Chelsea a little bit, or even Man City. And my dad got down to the negotiations with Ron Atkinson in his office with me, sat there in the sunbed in the corner, which was all strange, very strange.
Brilliant. So your dad, well, I suppose nowadays, players perhaps at that level have got an entourage supporting them off the field. So it was your dad, was it? It was your agent, I suppose, at that time.
Yeah, he just turned into an agent all of a sudden. We hadn't really done any dealings with Man City or Chelsea or Tottenham. But all of a sudden they got into this conflab about, and when I look back at it now, my dad was 40. Do you know what I mean? My dad's nearly 80 now, and it's just. But I sat there, and my dad said, "Yeah, let me just have a chat with my son." So Ron left the room, and he said, "How do you feel?" I just had, because before I'd gone up to the office, Paul McGrath, who was there, Norman Whiteside, Frank Stapleton, that Irish contingent kind of welcomed me, and I felt, these are my heroes, like, and they're trying to convince me to sign for Man United. So I thought, right, I'll go with it. We sat there, and Ron said we wanted to sign a 3.5-year contract, which was probably more than what the other clubs were offering. I think they were offering a 2-year contract, and it was straight pro as well. So my dad said, look, I know what my boy is worth. He said, so he took a piece of paper and he wrote down, he ripped it in half, gave Ron half of the paper. He had a half. He said, I'm going to write down what my son is worth in signing on fee, because I think they'd agreed my weekly wage. So Ron was like, yeah, okay, I'm loving this. Let's do this. So I don't know what's going on. So my dad's written something down. Ron's writing something down. So they swap. So, I was thinking, right, I wonder what Ron's done, But Ron, before my dad could look at what, he'd written, Ron had looked at his and started laughing. And he said, it's a deal, Mick. It's a deal. So they stood up, they shook hands. And I'm like, what? What's going on? So they stood up and they're looking at pictures on the wall. So I'm thinking, right, what's Ron written? So I looked at Ron's piece of paper where my dad had it, and it was $5,000 for the 3 years.
Okay.
I thought, what was my dad written? So I looked at what Ron's desk, so I kind of looked it over, and my dad hadn't written a figure. All he'd written was double it. So he, before even Ron knew it, he counteracted him. And that was it. Like, so when we stood up, all of a sudden I'm signing, and we walk out into the Cliff car park, and my dad's a bit down now, and I'm thinking, because he's a massive Man United supporter, and all his family have been. I said, what's up, Dad? And he went, no, I made a mistake. I said, what do you mean? He said, I should have wrote triple it. He said, but I didn't he could, but I didn't want to look stupid. I didn't know how many P's were in triple.
Fantastic.
So that was my negotiation with that. So yeah, I'm sure if you had written triple, Ron would have probably gone, yeah, okay.
Yeah, no
so
problem. Oh, well played.
So that was that.
Oh, fair play. That's amazing. You mentioned, some of that Irish contingent then, and you obviously hear stories of what life was like, perhaps under Ron Atkinson at that time, and the culture, I suppose, the social scene behind the scenes. What was that like? Paul McGrath, particularly a name that stands out. I've read his autobiography. That must have been some fun times.
Yeah, I mean, I read Paul's autobiography years after I left United, and some of the stuff that was in there shocked me a little bit, because Paul hid it very well. And Paul's a good friend of mine, and still to this day. And I still say he's probably the best player I've played with at Man United. You've got Robson and Stapleton and the younger players coming through. But Paul was an absolute machine. He was everything that I wanted to be as a centre-half. But the off-the-scene kind of culture. I mean, I was still young, 17, 18. I got dragged into it a couple of times. Which,
screaming, I bet.
well, I was a young lad, you know what I mean? I was like, I hadn't touched the drop of alcohol until I got to Man United. And but it was some great nights out. Norman, Brian, when I say nights out, afternoons, Paul and all that. But there was that kind of culture there. And I think football generally in the late 80s, early 90s, most clubs were at it. Having socials and Sunday out on a Monday, whatever it is. But that all changed when Sir Alex came in.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. That was shortly after you arrived then, I think, on the timeline that Sir Alex Ferguson obviously came in. So you must have seen firsthand from the very beginning of his tenure in charge, the changes that he brought in. Massive
changes. I mean, I signed in the March, and then I think Fergie came in the November, maybe. Okay. So, I signed in the March. I trained a few times, went home for the summer. But when I came back for pre-season, Ron was in charge. And it wasn't long, 7 or 8 weeks before Fergie came in from Aberdeen. And I think even the coaches who were there, the likes of Eric Harrison, Brian Whitehouse, Brian Kidd, they were, Nobby Stiles was there as well. So they were as scared as the players were, I think. Yeah. But even things like you know, you had to have short hair. You brought in club suits. Lo and behold, if anyone had a tattoo, you'd be gone. You know what I mean? I know later on with Bex and stuff like that, he kind of relaxed a bit, but the training was different. It was more intense. Whereas Ron would never come and watch the reserves or the youth team. Fergie would be there watching the training. Okay. You'd be, some of the reserves of youth team would be joining in with the first team. Whereas with Ron, it was just the first team all the time. So Fergie was all over it, over it.
Sounds like a really holistic approach. And he obviously did give you your first team debut, during that period. You had the likes of, I suppose, coming into Steve Bruce and Gary Pallister, etc., at his disposal, almost in front of you in the pecking order. But he did, as you said, give you reserve team captaincy leadership role, which he sort of, like you say, must have been coming to watch you a lot. So you must have seen many of the greats coming through the club as well, particularly perhaps the young version of the class of 92 just coming through. Did you, play alongside those guys? And who stood out for you at that time?
Well, he gave me my debut against Millwall, and I came on for Viv Anderson. I mean, you had like Brucey was playing, Pallister, Mal Donaghy. You had Robson in the team, Remy Moses, Jesper Olsen. There were so many great players in that team. Schmeichel was there as well after a couple of years. But then as the years went on there, and I only played a couple of times for the first team and, captain of the reserves, we used to go and watch the class of 92 coming through. We'd go and watch them play. And these boys were about 16, 17 or wherever they were. And a lot of us could see that they were going to be something special. And it kind of made a lot of our, ideas to move on, I think, because when I left Cardiff City, left for Cardiff City, he'd offer me a 2-year contract to stay. But I was 23 then, and I'm thinking, no way, I need to go and play. I've had a taste of it. But the ones who stood out for me were, the likes of Bex, Giggsy was already playing in the reserves with it and the first team. And you got Nicky Butt, it was endless that the players coming through. So they were going to overtake us. So we kind of thought, well, me particularly, I thought, right, I can't be, particularly the Nevilles, both defenders.
Yeah.
And it's a strange thing because, when I did leave there in 93, I didn't see Fergie until probably 15 years later when I was working at Cardiff City as matchday ambassador. And he was there. Someone said to me, Keith Cooper said to me, he said, your gaffer's in the he's in the director's lounge. So I went in and he was there and they're all sat around the table and there was no seat. So Fergie went, he used to call me Baz. He went, Baz, come and sit down. And he told Bobby Charlton to get out of his seat to give me his seat. And I'm like, okay. So I sat down and he went, how are you, son? I'm good. He said, and what shocked me was his level of, I'm gone 15 years, whatever, but his level of care. Now, bear in mind, I've had a few hairdryer moments off him and I've seen him give them to, big names down there.
Yeah.
And at times I used to think he was a bit of a bully. But when I look back at it now, he was trying to harden you up, strengthen you up. And you always thought he didn't care about you. But that day at Cardiff City, 15 years later, when he sat me down, and the first thing he said to me was, how was Mick and Evelyn? Which is my mum and dad's name.
Parents, wow.
And I went, I was like, wow, yeah, they're good. And then he blew me away again and said, tell me, is your dad still taxiing? Now,
wow.
I can't even remember some people I've worked with a month ago.
Yeah.
Or played with. But to have that level, I could understand it with like certain players who like Robsons and Bruces and Schmeichels and gigs like that and Sharpie. But like I thought to myself, that is something that people don't see. And I think with him, to say that to me, and I did say to him, look, I've got to ask you a question. I said, look, when you sold me, I was playing for the first team at Reading in a friendly, and I was just gone. I went to Cardiff City. I couldn't say goodbye to anyone. He never really gave me a reason. I said, what was the reason you sold me all those years ago? And he went, there's 2 reasons. And as soon as I asked the question, I'm thinking, oh no, nights out, the wrong type of woman,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, why have I asked him this now? Why have I? And then he went, there's two reasons, and it's Bruce and Pallister. He said, you were never going to get in front of them. So eventually I had to, and he was right. I mean, they stayed together for 10 years, didn't they? Those two.
Yeah, perhaps on another day, you're talking Bruce and Brazil, or it could have been.
Well, you never know, do you? But yeah, I had a great ground in there, not just football wise, but how to. I mean, what Fergie taught me was how to manage yourself, how to demand stuff from players, how to treat players.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's in life as well. I think his principles have always stuck with me.
Yeah, well, and we come on to your sort of management styles, and obviously what a great mentor that must have been in your early days there. You mentioned that pivotal time and leaving Man United must have been a huge decision, but as you said, you played right through the age range of Republic of Ireland appearances, right up to under 23s. You're reaching the end of your contract at the end, 1992. Cardiff City then. So how did that come about? And why Cardiff?
Well, about a year before that, I'd gone to Swansea on loan for 3 months, and Frank Burrows was the manager. And they wanted to sign me after 3 months. But Fergie wanted 250 grand, which they couldn't afford. So I went back to United for another year. And then I think Eddie May must have seen me play, because Eddie May was the manager of Cardiff City at the time. He must have seen me play as Swansea. And to me, I didn't really understand the rivalry between Swansea and Cardiff City until I moved down here. Even when I was at Swansea, they were in different leagues. So that rivalry didn't really surface. So Eddie May asked me to come down on loan for a month. I came down, and within 2 games, he'd asked me to sign. So I signed I think it was a 3-year deal.
Excellent. Well, you went on to play, I think, over 100 times for the Cardiff Bluebirds. Became a real fan favourite, as you said. You're still going back there in your ambassador role and things like that. So it's great to see that there's almost a lifetime association with Cardiff City. But we had Jazz Richards, obviously a player with us over the last few years. Previously spoke to him about his time playing, obviously, for Swansea and Cardiff, but he didn't play in a South Wales derby, and I think you played in a few of those. What were those games like, at Ninian and the Vetch back in the day?
Well, I remember going, when I signed for Cardiff, I remember going back to the Vetch to play for Cardiff City, and it was a Sunday against Swansea. And I remember we were warming up across the pitch and all that, and I'd go towards the Bob Bank, we'd all jog back, jogging across, and as I jogged across, there was a few Swansea fans giving me stuff like, traitor, so I kissed the badge. So, I don't know why I did it. And on the time, when we came back, the same fella was shouting at me, and he had a blade this long to his neck. And I absolutely, whatever time to say it. So on the way back, I said to a steward and a police officer, I told him what happened. And I won't tell you what the steward and the police officer said to me. They were obviously Swansea. They didn't take it serious. They just saves you right type of thing. But I was taking throw-ins on the far side so quickly. I must have done so many throw-ins. Have I got away with them? But then, when we played, I played them a few times, and I think one that stuck out was when we played them at Cardiff City, and the game had to be abandoned after 20 minutes because the Cardiff City fans and the Swansea fans, the Swansea fans were chucking chairs in the main stand, the old wooden chairs, literally chucking them. And I'm on the pitch, and I'm like, wow. So they halted the game till they sorted it out. And we went out and we won 2-1 in the end. So, yeah, there's a lot of fierce rivalry there, and still to this day, So, but I think I did look back at it, and there's quite a number of players who played for both teams. The Gileses, Alan Curtis, people like that. So, but I'm not particularly favoured by a lot of the Swansea fans anyway, but I'm not really bothered about that.
Brilliant. Great to look back on now, and I'm sure you scurried out the grounds every time you were playing in Swansea after that.
I went out in Swansea once when I think it was manager Haverfordwest, and I was friends with Lee Trundle at the time, and still am, and we were in Wine Street, and he said to me, "There, you need to leave now." I'm like, "Why?" I'm like, "What?" He said, "There's lads over there, they want to kill you." So yeah, so I kind of made a scarp of the way. So that's kind of where we went. So,
Moving swiftly on then.
yeah.
After Cardiff, then I suppose another milestone moment in your playing career where you joined Newport County, almost 100 appearances for them as well. But that's when I think you started your own coaching career and did your badges at Newport.
Yeah, while I was at Newport, I did my C, I did my B, and then eventually when I went to Haverfordwest, I did my A, and then started my pro license. Then I didn't complete my pro license, but yeah, so I was quite young. I think when I left Cardiff City at 27, I had a chance to go back to Ireland, but I didn't really want to go back to Ireland because, in many ways, at that age, 27, you think if I go back now, people will see that you failed. So that thing in me was no, because it was so hard for youngsters to leave Ireland to come over to the English Premier League or whatever, the English system. So I felt I needed to stay and going part time with Newport County and starting as their football and community officer, allowed me to do my badges and which is great because still to this day I still do coaching within schools. So
yeah, brilliant. That almost brought an end, not quite, because you still turned out for a number of Welsh league clubs at the time, and Haverfordwest County you did have a season, I think, down west, 42 appearances. Who was the manager who brought you down originally then?
It was Jason Jones. Yeah, so I was there for, I think it was like 2 seasons. I think it was there. Jason Jones brought me in, yeah. But like the setup down there was fantastic. The manager, Mickey Ellis has been there since I think the first block went in. Do you know what I mean? So, a real stalwart to the club. So we played some great players there, like Mickey George and Jamie Rickard. It's Wayne Jones, Wolvesy. It was a great set of lads, absolute great set of lads, and I loved my time playing there. I always felt welcome there, and it was just a lovely feel about the club that I loved being there.
Unsurprising you say you enjoyed it, because I think a few years later you were offered the job as first team manager. I think Darren Brace had gone through a really successful time, taking the club to Europe, and I think it was due to work commitments. He had to sort of take a step back from it. So tell us, about coming in, those 4 years at the helm. What was life at the Meadow like for you as a manager then?
Well, it was obviously my first foray into management, and I had a phone call from the then chairman, Rob Summons, and then David Hughes. So it was. Do I do it? I was thinking. I don't know whether I wanted to do it or, and I thought they'd taken a big chance on me, and I thought, right, I'll do it. I've got to have to try it sometime.
Yeah.
And I remember I got in touch with Darren just before I'd taken the job, or I told him that I'd been offered it, and just kind of picked his brains about certain things, and I went into it, and I think it was. I wouldn't say it was a lot easier, but I think there was 16 teams in the top league at that time. So, finances didn't really come into it because, whereas you look at it now, or 10 teams, wherever it is, the ones with the big finances, seem to do the best. Whereas the ones who struggled to get the right players in to stay in that league. Whereas we had 16 teams in that league, so I would say there was about 8 teams like us who, the budget wasn't massive, and it was a case of trying to get players in, but I really enjoyed my 4 years there. Towards the end, it's my daughter had just been born, and I think she was born in April. I think I was burnt out. I was totally burnt out to the fact, but the support I had from everyone who worked there, the volunteers, the manager, the chairman, everybody supported me, and I loved my time there.
Excellent. Yeah, you say you stepped back yourself, and in November 2010 you left the club, but it was just 12 games later. Gavin Chesterfield was your successor, but again, I think his own work commitments changed, and you must have had a phone call, I think, about 3 months later, asking you to come back as manager to see out the remainder of the 10-11
Yeah,
season.
it was different. It was. I mean, I remember like that season we had. I think I'd given Rayo his debut.
Yeah.
I think Bobby included him. We had Lee Hudgell who was flying, Jack Christopher. You know, we had some really good players. I mean, like, we had a few older heads like Tom Ramosett and Craig Hamford, Jarman. So, you know, and then when I left, I think it was at Nice. I think Trundle scored a hat trick against us away.
Hmm.
You know, they were like flying. And then I had a phone call then to see if I'd come back because we were in dire straits. I think a little bit in terms where we were in the league. I think it was something like 6 games or 7 games, and I thought, well, I'll come back and do it. And our first game was Carmarthen at home, and we beat them. And you know, everyone thought, "Oh, right, this is it. We're going to stay up. We're going to stay up." But I knew, looking at the fixtures that we had, that it was going to be extremely difficult, and we would have to win a lot of them games. And I think we drew too many. I think with those last 6. But you know, I no qualms. I did say, you know, even if we stayed up, I would be leaving at the end of the season anyway. So, but yeah, it was. Sometimes I often think, should I have gone back? But you know, as a player there for 2 years, as a manager there for 4 years, the club was good to me, and I felt, you know, that if I could go back and help out some way, and you know, and even I think at the time I spoke to Rob and David, and I said, look, you need to prepare now. If we do go down, you know, you need to start looking at the playing squad. You know, if we stay up, great. But the contingency plan needs to be that if we do go down to Division 1 or wherever it was,
Yeah,
you need to start planning for that now. And, you know, I think, you know, and one of the other things as well was that to go back there as well, the people there, you know, the supporters, the lifelong supporters, the people who do volunteer work for the club. You know, I just felt I needed to go back and try and help. I mean, if we'd have stayed up, it'd have been brilliant, but I probably still would have left anyway. So,
and I think looking back, that was the real start of a new era. Obviously, Wolvesy
yeah,
had come in as your assistant for that second spell in charge. I think he then obviously took hold of the club going forward, and
yeah,
it wasn't long after I joined, to be honest, in various roles. And you know, we did have one promotion and an immediate relegation back into the Welsh Premier, it was known as back then, Dafferbeck Welsh Premier for that one season. But you know, we flirted with promotion back in the Cymru South and Welsh Division 1 for a number of years. But that was the real journey, like you say, the reset button almost, to really go back to the roots of the club, getting a lot of local boys. You know, there was the emergence of your Ricky Watts, your Greg Walters, and boys like that coming through just at that starting point. So, you know, like you say, it's led
I
to.
mean, Ricky's done. I mean, he's such a stalwart. I think I gave Ricky his debut as well.
Well,
I mean, you know, at that early age, you could see what a tenacious player he was, and to see him now still doing it is a credit to him, you know, and his family and everyone around him. That he's still such an important figure at the club. It's amazing to see.
Yeah, good performance from him this week away in horrendous conditions at Old Road in Britain Ferry. But you're right, he's still doing it. But with you then, you know, that last management role with Haverfordwest, this skipped the best part of a decade now. You're still passing on your experience and your knowledge, as you said, in your various roles in your professional life now. But with regards to Welsh football, it's still you're still sprinkling your gold dust on Trethomas Bluebirds. I think it coincides, the trophies and promotions that Trethomas Bluebirds have won really coincides with the time since, you know, that you've been there. So many at the club, you mentioned Rayo and Bobby, they've been on a previous episode with us when we were just about to come up to Ystrad and play in the Welsh Cup 2 years ago. That
was my first game.
Was it really? Okay,
yeah.
Well,
I know.
You haven't looked back since. It was a night, I'm sure you'll remember that. You advanced in the cup, a 2-1 win, a worthy 2-1 win as well of the night. The boys played really, really well with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot has changed at Trethomas since then, for the better. I think that season you went on to win the Welsh Amateur Trophy. I remember watching that on the Cymru Football app. I couldn't make it up to Latham Park, but you beat Denby, I think, in the final. And also gaining promotion to the Cymru South, which, you know, a monumental achievement for the club. So looking back on these last few years, you must be really proud of the work that yourselves and others are doing at the Trethomas.
Yeah, I mean, I came in. This is my third season now, and to be honest, I'd say I've been out of football for a while. You know, I was doing my own coaching and stuff and all that, and in a way, I didn't even like watching football. You know, when you go to that stage of like, I didn't even like watching football. I'd watch Man United on a telly maybe, but I wouldn't go to games. I'd work at Cardiff City as a matchday ambassador. I mean, there, you know, for a while, the performances there, the change of managers, it was a bit of a mess. So I didn't enjoy watching a game. And then Trethomas asked me to come in and, you know, do the role. And you know, and you know, it has been successful the last 3 seasons, but that's not just down to me. Or there's so many people behind the scenes. You know, the chairman David Evans, who used to watch me on the Bob Bank. You know, it's quite frightening. So he's probably the most successful chairman outside the Welsh Premier League in the last 3 years in terms of success. You know, we've got a brilliant committee. Our media is so much better now with Julian Farmer. Our committee is so hard working. You know, you're talking about Trethomas Bluebirds, which is just a small village, which is, you know, trying to fly the flag for the county up there. And the behind the scenes work, I mean, it started before I come in. You know, you've got a good manager in place like Mark Dunford, you know, with Rayo helping him, Matthew Jones helping him, Lee Moore there as well. They've been together for the last, you know, 4 or 5 years. So the plan was to get to Cymru South within 4 years, and they've managed to do that. And I think off the field, everybody does their bit, whether it's trying to drag in some sponsorship, whether it's, you know, this year, you know, Cymru South, going to Cymru South last year was brilliant because that was the aim. We spoke to the manager and said, look, you know, we won the FA trophy, but that this season, which is last season, our aim has to be the league promotion, which we did. I think we only lost 2 games in the whole, you know, we scored over 100 goals. You know, as I said, a great management team. You know, I mean, you can have great, I mean, you know, my kind of job at the club is I liaise with Mark Dunford, the manager, the board. You know, someone like Mark Dunford as well, who lives local as well. Who's, you know, he's had a great career playing football, but you know, he's. I mean, I always think about managers that managers are great before a game. They're great after the game if they win. If they don't, they'll find an excuse. But the brilliant thing about Mark is, as our manager, is his in-game management. He, you know, that for me sets the best managers, you know, apart from the others, is that in that 90 minutes, how you affect that, whether it's subs or whether it's tactics or positional changes or whatever you want to do. They're the ones who make the difference. And, you know, he's got a great staff there. And I think, you know, this year, as well as getting into Cymru South, we now have an under-16s. We've got a more of a thriving reserve team. We've got an under-19s. Oh. So next year we're looking to get a girls' football team going. So possibly a walking football team. So, I mean, I think the only thing that hampers us is that we haven't got our own ground. That's, you know, our home is Llanfabon Drive, but at the moment it's literally a council pitch, you know. So we have to play at Ystrad Monarch. So, which, you know, you don't get any finances back from it apart from the gates. You know, you can't use the coffee bar. There's no clubhouse, you know. So it's difficult, but I think the club of you know, I think you say Cymru South, we've gone in there. We've surprised a lot of teams, I think. But we're doing our third of the season, and we're where no one thought we would be, and we probably didn't think we would be. But we'll take it as long as we can, you know.
100%. Lots of what you said there will resonate with Haverfordwest County supporters. You know, you're very community focused, and you know, it's easy to follow the club social media with you, and it's easy to see the levels you're going up. You know, the digital side of it, I must commend. You know, it's excellent. With, I'm sure, volunteers around supporting and all the off-field stuff. You've named a lot of good people there. You know, and with good people, good things happen, I think. And I've seen, you know, the trophy tour, for want of a better word. You took it round.
I've actually got it in the kitchen. So it's in the kitchen. My missus is like, how long is that staying there for?
Well, it's pride of place on the windowsill.
I said until we lose. If we lose a game, I'll pass it on to someone else. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's still there.
Great to see. You mentioned Mark Dunford. I remember hearing him. I think it might have been your first game of the season. I think Scorio cameras were with you. Did an interview with him, and he said, "Look, main aim this season is survival." And I know that's remaining grounded, feet on the floor. But I did have a sneaky suspicion that you would surprise a few and be a bit of a surprise package. Having seen over the last few years, you've got a really good squad of players, a number of individuals. I've always liked Gareth Tedstone up top. The keeper's always performed well when I've seen him.
I think our start this year, we kept all our players last year, bar one or two, Levi being one of them. So the run we were on last year, we've kind of carried it on. And it's like when you're winning games, momentum. That feeling and that mentality of your system and you're winning games, we've carried it into this league. Now, no doubt we'll come. I mean, we won 3-2 last Friday again. We won one game in 6 up to that win. And yes, I know 2 of them were cup games, but we were still top of the league. So it shows you how tight that league is. We're on 21 points and you could go down 9 places. And there's not much between it. So, and everybody seems to be beating everybody. Some of the results on the weekend, you look at them and you think, wow, I never expected that. I think that's what Cymru South does is, everybody's capable of beating someone on the day.
Yeah.
So, and we'll just keep going and see where we end up. And that old cliche, one game at a time. And hopefully if we're injury free and suspension free, we'll finish as high as we want or we can.
It's refreshing to see, the teams like yourselves coming up into that league and really mixing it and competing. And like I said, you're leading, you're right up there at the top of the table, competing against teams who I'm sure aren't hiding the fact that they want to go up to the Cymru Premier themselves. So, is that a long-term aim of the club?
I think a lot of work would need to go into that. If you look at our situation where we play, we'd need a lot of support from the council. And there's no hiding the fact that, if we did get promoted, I mean, we've applied for the Tier 1 license. If we did get that, there's no hiding the fact that if we did go up, then we would need more sponsorship to improve our squad. Because the last thing you want to do is go up and get battered every week. That. And you got trips up to North Wales, and then you may have some players who can't. I've known players who have been promoted and, don't want to play in the Welsh Premier League because of the travelling.
Yeah.
And they end up coming back to Cymru South or even the league below. So I think a lot of investment would be needed, and our club is on the up. It is thriving. But like a lot of clubs at our level, we do need more financial support in terms whether it's from the council or grants or somebody to come in who, a big name sponsor to try and, I mean, I think like anybody, like Haverfordwest, it would be wonderful in a couple of years if we ended up playing in Europe, and there's no saying we couldn't do that. But I think we've got off the field structure in place, but you need a little bit more than that to survive in the Welsh Premier. I mean, it's I think we're the first, Trethomas team to be in Cymru South in its history. So for us, I think, it'd be great if we won the league, but we're just happy to be competing with teams in the league. Like you said, the big test for us, can we compete against an athlete? Can we compete, against, the so-called top teams in that league? And we do compete. So that's good for us. If we're getting smashed 6 or 7, our attendances go down. Players start to think, I'll drop down a league. This is not the league for me. So we just got to keep going and be positive. So, and
100%. Well, he's certainly riding the crest of a really good wave at the moment. And I think with success, that will promote, local businesses and more opportunities come into the doorsteps of the club. So obviously we all wish you well from Haverfordwest County's Bluebirds. We've always had a bit of a soft spot because of obviously the club links like yourself, Rio and Bobby, etc. So we do wish you well for the Cymru South season. However, this weekend has drawn us up against each other. The cup match, we're playing obviously at the LHP Stadium in Carmarthen. Probably not quite the return to the meadow that you would have liked on this one, unfortunately, with the pitch.
Yeah, I think I've been back once. I think I went down. I think I went out with some of the boys down there for a night out. But I haven't been back to a game, and I always say I was going to go back to a game. And then when we were drawing in the cup away, I was like, "Oh, lovely!" I mean, it'd be great to see it. You know, so many old faces and young faces, and Marcus, even Marcus, see him. You know what I mean? So, but I'm sure he'd have a Barrytown jacket on anyway. So, but I'm unfortunately I can't make the game this weekend anyway because I've been invited to a Cardiff City 1993 reunion against Plymouth on the weekend. So it'd be nice to see the boys there. But I don't know. I mean, it's probably a good thing because the last couple of times I've seen us play down at Carmarthen, we've lost. So we lost last year in the semi-final of the cup. We lost previously there to Carmarthen. But, you know, it's always been I always thought it was a lucky ground for me because when I was manager at Haverfordwest, I don't think we lost many games there. I mean, we even won a game when Wolsey was in goal. I mean,
I remember that one.
Says it all.
I do.
That says it all. That was a great time. I mean, but no, I think, you know, it's weird. I was thinking about it yesterday. It's weird that, you know, I was at Cardiff City Bluebirds, Haverfordwest Bluebirds, Trethomas Bluebirds. It just seemed Bluebirds seemed to be
through your life,
you know. Yeah, so in my life, so
amazing.
But I wonder if there's a Barcelona Bluebirds. Are they?
For the sun.
Are you looking for anyone? So, but I'll keep an eye out for that. But no, I think it'll be. I mean, Haverfordwest are rightly favourites, and we'll go and give it a go. You know, I spoke to Mark Dunford about it, and Dunny was saying we'll give it a go. And you never know what's going to happen on the day. And I think, you know, knowing Pens, he won't take us lightly. I think, you know, he'll show us respect by playing as strong a team as he can. I mean, even if they rested 4 or 5, they'll, you know, Abbey West will still be strong. So, but you don't know what's going to happen on the day. It's a cup game. You know, a decision may go against you. You know us like cup games. I mean, I don't think we were favourites to beat you 3 years ago or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But, you know, I believe we're better than them. And certainly Haverfordwest are much stronger now as well. So, you know, I think you're favourites and rightly so.
Yeah, it's deja vu. I had the same conversation with Bobby and Rio 2 years ago, and it is very much, it's a cup game, anything can happen. And obviously that night, Jack Wilson scored for us pretty early on, and I think everybody's probably thinking, all right, okay, there's going to be 1, 2, maybe 3 goals here. And it was very much we were in the ascendancy of the game, and then obviously the red card slightly changed it, but you still were good for the win on the night. I genuinely think it was a really good team performance. You could see then, you know, good things were happening with you guys. And, you know, you're right up there in the mix in Cymru South. You know, you're going to be a tough task for us. It is, obviously, we appreciate sort of the home side of it, perhaps on our, you know, allowing you guys to travel across down the M4 West. But anything can happen. And I know, obviously, this year, the Welsh Cup's got that European place on it. So it's another entry point to get a team into Europe. So lots of clubs are going to be looking to have that good cup run. You know, we're no different with that, I'd imagine. Really, you know, to try and have a positive result on the weekend and go forward in this cup. But not going to be easy. It's set up for an entertaining one. Sorry to hear you aren't there, and we're not going to catch up with familiar faces in person. However,
I'll be on Comet looking, don't worry. I'll be looking, yeah. I think it's the most used app I've got is Comet. Whether if I'm at a Trethomas game, I'm looking at other game scores, and if I'm not there, it's just,
It's insightful and it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Everyone's got their grudges with the good and the bad around the Cymru leagues, I suppose. There's always things we can improve, but that is certainly something that's been a bit of a game changer. Just this week, obviously, the live commentary that we do, I'm able to flick through all the results coming in, and I like to have with winning away at Carnarvon. You got one eye on the scores coming in and one eye on the game in front of you. It's it's exciting, but Listen, we've spoken about a return to the meadow, and there's an invite coming here. So before we wrap up, I've also got a bit of the honour of announcing something very special to you. For the last 2 years, we've been developing a Haverfordwest County Wall of Fame at the Oggy Bridge Meadow that recognises individuals and groups of people who have gone above and beyond in representing the club for a wide range of reasons. And I'm really proud to let you know that you are our latest inductee to the Club Wall of Fame. So Congratulations from your time playing and managing the Pembrokeshire Bluebirds. I'm delighted to say your name will be soon up on the wall alongside the other inductees. So yeah, congratulations.
Oh, that's a massive honour. That's thank you very much for that. I don't know. I'm not normally lost for words, but I thought you said wall of shame first. I'm thinking
that's the other side.
Yeah, that's the other side. But I'm very honoured to accept that, and I look forward to coming down and
I
don't know, and be there when it's done, I suppose. Is that how it works? I don't know.
The plan. Yeah, we've got obviously Wolvesey's up there, Mickey Ellis, Sean Pemberton, Ricky Watts. There's a number. Darren and Tim Hicks came on the podcast in the summer, inducted both of those, as obviously Hicksy scored the first goal in Europe and had a great playing career, as did Darren, and obviously the manager that takes into Europe. But we've got a long list of people we want to get inducted into the Wall of Fame. And what we hope to do, obviously, is when we return to Haverfordwest, invite everybody down who's due to come up on the wall. Get out, it'd be great to see yourself and many of the stalwarts of the club for many decades together. Ideally for the first game, whenever that is, back on our brand new surface. It'd be great to see you down there. And get all the Wall of Famers together to celebrate that. The start of a new era, I think. It would be great. But it's a pleasure from obviously the board and the staff and everybody. Your name has been long associated with the club. We've heard great stories in through the years of everybody in the bar after games and that. So really well deserved inductee. Yeah, and thank you for your time. I've thoroughly enjoyed this chat. It's been a fantastic insight into your playing and management career. Best of luck for the rest of the league season.
Okay. Yeah, if we do beat you, then you have to do another 5-minute broadcast for me.
Follow up.
Right.
I look forward to catching up very soon. But no, all I say, fingers crossed for an entertaining game. I suppose may the best team win.
Come on, the Bluebirds.
Indeed. Thank you, Derek. Cheers, mate.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you.